Hey, hi there, Splatty. Hello. Do you have a question? How am I? That's a great question. I'm recovering from a flu, actually. But other than that, I'm fine. I'm just testing out the Starlink. I Part of me really doesn't want to give any money to Elon Musk, but where I'm located at the moment, there's a very poor internet connection, and so it'd be interesting to see how it holds up. Yeah, I should be. I'm okay. I'm getting better, but it's been over a week now. It's never been possible to stream from this location, so this is a first, actually. Can I ask you a question? How did you find out about the stream? I mean, I'm not exactly um, don't have that popular a channel, so that was pretty fast. So tell me a bit about yourself, or ask me a question. It's not irrelevant, yeah. What's your question about game design? I always like talking about game design. What happened to Player Manager 2? Oh dear. Yeah, Player Manager 2. So if we go all the way back to to kickoff, the check well, to answer that question, you have to understand how kickoff happened. That, you know, I I had started making games like 8 to 10 years before I started work on Kickoff. Um, and I was pretty young. I was a teenager, so I went to university. And then when I came out of university, I had a job. And I quit the job to do game development. And Anko, Anil Gupta at Anko, wanted a football game. And I really didn't want to make a football game, but I went and did it anyway. And so, okay, let's kick off. So after kickoff, I had this idea of combining it with a management game and to use the same philosophy of game design that I used in kickoff in the management game and have the two things tied together. So so Player Manager was next and based on kickoff. Um, so yeah, Player Manager 2 was supposed to happen, but um, Anil Gupta and me too wanted to make a sequel to Kickoff because Kickoff had become this success out of the blue. So that gave Kickoff 2. That's how Kickoff 2 came into existence. Um, and it was interesting. You see, after Kickoff 2, which is around 1990, um, then is that the right way round? You say, yeah, that seems right. Then I got married to my ex, and I suppose we had to look at also, so my life circumstances changed a bit. But I suppose we had to make a decision of whether to do the sequel to Player Manager or to do the sequel to Kickoff. And I think Kickoff 2, and I think my idea was to do the sequel to Kickoff 2. first and then do Player Manager afterwards. Now, the development work for the sequel to Kickoff 2 progressed a little slowly. And there was also Sensible Software were developing their own football game. And what Sensible Software did is they actually approached Anko. They talked to Anil Gupta and tried to get Anil Gupta to buy their game. It's an absolutely true story. Should also point out that there was, in Japan, there was Kickoff, Super Kickoff, Super NES. And that one was based on the actual, actually, I flew out to Japan to help them with that one. So that also happened in between. And I remember it was around about that time that I saw a video of Sensible Soccer before it was even published. I think it was shown to me by a producer in Japan. So anyway, the point was that I went and spoke to Anil Gupta, right? So Anil about this, because Anil Gupta still answering it. Oh, notification. Okay, well, it's good that works. So Anil Gupta, about how he had been entertaining this approach from Sensible Software. This is not as entirely well known as the rest of the story, right? But when people sort of pick up that there's a little bit of animosity between me and Sensible Software, there is this part of the story too, right? So anyway, so I talked to Anil Gupta about it, and I said, what about loyalty? Because I was a bit upset. I mean, wouldn't you be? And Anil Gupta said, I owe you no loyalty. This was on the phone. It was a phone conversation. I remember exactly where I was sitting at the time. It was a bit of a shock to hear this from Anil Gupta and his company that was going bankrupt until I came along. They had been they had to resort to strip poker. You always know software companies on its last legs if it has to resort to that kind of software. And that is the reason why I moved on from Anko. And they hadn't paid me anything for the development of Kickoff 3 because I retained my independence by self-financing, you see. I just moved and with the help of an agent, which was Jackie Lyons, I got the deal with Virgin. And eventually Goal came out. So the point is that the intention then was to do a sequel to Player Manager anyway, with whatever it would be called. But the problem was that Goal did not do as well. And it became that, and the industry changed, and it became unsustainable, and I couldn't actually continue. And so that's the reason why Player Manager 2 never happened. And if Kickoff Revival had allowed me to remain a independent game developer, we'd probably have a sequel to Player Manager by now. But alas, no. So there you are. Probably more information there than you wanted. I have to press this thing here to get the chat to appear. I don't know why. Let me scroll through. Play. Yeah, well, I'm glad you like Player Manager 1. The gameplay on Sensible Soccer was a bit of, it was the move towards, you could call it the beginning of the FIFAization of football games, when skill was very much less important. And the thing is that the lesson there in game design is, if you make a game where people believe that their skill counts, um, then it doesn't matter whether or not it does. See, I, I, I'm not saying I was right, but the type of game that I believed in was the one where it was like a sport. So how well you played the game actually affected the result. If you go and play a game like FIFA, I'm not saying that there's no skill involved, but it's a different kind of thing. It's almost like playing a board game, you know. It's not right down to that being able to take a shot on goal under pressure. That doesn't happen in FIFA. You know, you might feel like it happens, but it's fake. You're not really taking the shot. Um, what they did with Sensible Soccer is they dumbed it down, so they made it more accessible. And what this did was it avoided the problem of, you know, you'd have two brothers playing each other, for example. And this is the reason why it was split, by the way. It was an almost precise split of 50-50. Half of the people loved the game, half the people hated the game. And that was because the half that loved the game always won, and the half that they loved the game, they always won, and the half that hated the game, they always lost. And because it was so skill based, it would depend on the amount of practice you put in, dedication, and not everybody has that. But it also is such a tough gameplay wise, that, you know, I could practice my own game for decades and never improve, because there is a certain limit, just like there is in sport. It's like there's a certain limit that it's just the way you're built. Do you have the reaction time, you know, or whatever? And there isn't anything that can be done. And so that's absolutely fine if you're playing people of a similar skill to you. But you know, what we would have is often a situation where you have two, for example, two brothers or two friends, and one would always win and one would always lose, and so then you would end up with a split, which had nothing really to do with the game design, more of the interaction of the game design with people. So they dumbed it down on Sensible Soccer, and that's why a lot more, you know, people tends to be people who loved kickoff are less keen on Sensible Soccer. The people who didn't love kickoff because they lost all the time found a game that they could play. Um, and that's my theory, and I'm sticking by it, because I might as well, you know. Let me just check the. Did you? No, Player Manager 2 never actually got started because I wanted to build it on the on the base of kickoff. Well, oh, that's a new person, Stefano. Sorry, I wasn't checking the name. Hi, Stefano. You know, the biggest compliment anybody can give me is to say that they loved goal, and the reason that's more means more to me than they love kickoff or kickoff two. It really does, because um, I did kickoff, and that was very successful, and then I did kickoff two, and that was, people loved that even more. And talk about piling the pressure on. So with goal, I wanted to take it to another level, and I thought I had, but it didn't work in the market for a whole bunch of reasons. I mean, I could tell you stories in there as well. I mean, Virgin, oh, talk about regret, when I gave in to pressure from Virgin to have a cover mounted disc on a magazine. I should never have said yes to that. It was such a stupid mistake. But anyway, for whatever reason, Goal shipped a lot of units on the first day, and then it petered out. And I got a lot of stick, a lot of reviews, negative reviews, and then reviewers, busy people, not necessarily going to sort of spend too much time figuring a game out. And that's the end, really, of my philosophy of game design as kind of something that is, um, you know, is good business wise. You know, it's a different thing. The industry has shifted over. I mean, in the end, we ended up with loot boxes. I don't know how we went from the golden era of Amiga games to loot boxes. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, to say that Goal, you think Goal was my best game, then that to me is a real compliment, because that's something that means something to me, because I was trying to achieve that. But that's the way it is, you know. I think it would have been a lot better for me if Kickoff hadn't been a success. In fact, I regret. I know it sounds bitter, but I regret having done it. Wish I had never done. I wish I had never made that game. I really do. I know some people get upset when I say that because they loved it and so on, but it's like, I'm great. I'm glad that there are a lot of people out there who who love that work, but I regret doing it because it it was like a big meteorite hit my life, and I've never, who knows, I've never really been. And you're always trying to chase it, always trying to do it again. It's yeah. Anyway, so thank you very much uh, for that compliment, wherever they've gone. I'm trying scrolling through the chat here. That was Stefano Grossi. And then Ricardo Di New. Oh gosh, hang on a minute. I'm PM for the players AI. Did you use finite state machines? Or God, it keeps disappearing while I'm reading it. This user interface is terrible. Hang on. Right. Okay. So the AI, Ricardo, the AI for Goal, or for Player Manager. Which was it? Sorry. Yeah. So Player Manager was based on the original Kickoff. So that was a very simple flat state machine. And it was all written in assembler, obviously. So, but it was fairly rudimentary in the way that it worked. So pauses, for example, because as you may know, when I make a game, I like things not to sort of pop around and be teleported, and but there to be a natural progression of stuff. And so that means that when the ball goes out of play, then maybe I teleport the ball. I mean, we could have a ball boy going and picking up. That was a bit excessive. So the ball might teleport, but all the players ran sort of into position and so on. So it's made for a fairly complicated state machine with pauses in there as well. And every single pause would be unique because it was having to be chained together in a graph with no um, nested states, no substates. So, and then as far as the match, actually playing on the field goes, the AI was based around a kind of radar that I made around the players, where they could look in 8 directions and know what the nearest player was, the nearest friendly player and nearest opponent. And the algorithm would search for solutions amongst this and decide whether or not to pass or to dribble and so on. And this worked very well actually. And then combine that together with a kind of zone thing where you, dependent on 12 areas of the pitch that the ball could be in, there'd be different positions that the players would stand. So that was all fairly simple. And then from the from the point of view of the management side, that was all done rather like a big Dungeons and Dragons simulation. So the players had attributes that were actually rolled on 3d6. These are six-sided dice. Roll it, three of them, add it together. You get a number between 1 and 8. Sorry, 3 and 18, and use that to generate their attributes, and had various algorithms for how that sort of shifted during play, and weighting functions, scoring functions, so the managers would sort of pick out the best, maybe with a randomization in there as well, and buy and sell players and simulate haggling. And I simulated everything that you do as a human was going on under the hood as well between the managers. So I hope that answers the question. It's sort of not things like GOPE, although I was goal orientated with this. It might sort of boil down to a simplified version of that, I don't know. All right, so let's see. Next one. Thank you for kickoff and goal. Thanks, Paul. The problem with being a legend is that I'm a real person. So I'll take that as a compliment, the way that it's meant. But I kind of, thank you. And I wish I wasn't a legend, actually, but that's not criticizing your compliment. It's complicated. Stefano, hi. Yes, I remember everything, but I also remember how many loved it despite Sensible Soccer. Yeah. And then, of course, there was the narrative in the media. So, how long did it take me to design Goal? I think in the end, Goal came out in 93. It was probably 2 years. It was probably 2 years of prototyping and iteration on it. And then I had to do then there's all the boring stuff as well, like, the user interface and so on. Blooms, am I still programming? Yes, I still program all the time. I occasionally do programming at home in my spare time, but right now I'm focusing on the music, because music. I mean, I gave up the music to do the indie game development, so I've still got some time to try and catch up. So as I do the music, but the last project I was working on at home was the Phi programming language, which maybe I'll get back to in the end. I'm tired of putting pressure on myself, frankly, and it's not as if anybody's really interested. So it's like I have a solution. I have a complete solution to all of the woes of software engineering. I'm not kidding. But I put out the basics of it is already published, and people are not banging on my door saying, yes, we want a piece of this. So, well, that's the way it is. Hi Tony, how you doing? Coraggio, absolutely. We need a lot of that these days. Player manager based on the goal engine. Yes, that was where it was meant to be going. So I was planning for that. That algorithm description seems familiar to modern cope. Yeah, well, um, I can. I've got no secrets. I mean, if you want to know more about those secrets, you can also look um, some of the things that the Sensible software lot have said, because they've literally published pictures of things that I'm going, I know exactly that. Those are my algorithms. So it's interesting how where they get those from. Who we might know one day. Giovanni, ciao. Sto abbastanza bene. C'ho un po' di freddore o influenza. Excuse me for slipping into Italian there. I'm saying I've got a bit of a cold, flu. Right, can I get the chat back? There we are. Sorry about the finger here, as I have to keep. I wish it would stay on the screen. That would be nice. Ma siamo tutti italiani. Forse sì, è in ragione di questa cosa, e forse perché sono in Italia. Questo, questo trasmissione, scusami l'italiano non è tanto bene, ma questa trasmissione viene proprio da Italia, da Toscana, Garfagnana Toscana. Forse per quella ragione lì siete tutti italiani. Algoritmo, chi lo sa? Eh? Una volta tutti ehm, facevano preghiere, pray al Dio. Questi giorni non è più facciamo la preghiera all'algoritmo. Si vede che qui l'algoritmo dice lui è in Italia, cominciamo con tutti in Italia. Non lo so. Devo smettere a provare a parlare in italiano adesso perché al fine io casco giù per la terra. E ormai è cominciato. Allora smetto, mi dispiace, ma I'll go back to English. Lui mi conosce come Pinu. Oh, you picked Giovanni or Pinu. How you doing? Good to see you. Paul Johnson. What was your first computer that you ever owned? You were a ZX81 guy. Yeah, my first one that I ever owned was that Acorn System 1. And so that's why I was a BBC Micro person after that. So I started with an Acorn System 1, then I had an Acorn Atom, then it was the BBC Micro, and then after the BBC Micro, there was a bit of a gap at university. There was Atari ST, and then the Commodore Amiga. But the Amiga, I only ever treated like a console. I never really used the Amiga as a computer. So when I was developing the games on ST and Amiga, the development environment was the ST, and I had a homemade parallel port cable that would connect the ST to the Amiga, and it would download the code. I had to write a bootstrap loader, and that I did on the Amiga, But then once I got that going, then I was treating the Amiga like a game console. Wonderful, yes. Garfagnana is a beautiful part of Tuscany because it's up in the mountains. People think of Tuscany as the rolling hills, but we're up in the Apuan Alps. And so I'm transmitting, this is the first time ever that I've been able to stream from this location because the internet connection here is, the upstream is 250k. It's like a quarter of a megabit per second. And my poor parents, the internet connection is so bad they can't even see my website, my YouTube, and they're the biggest consumers. We've done an audit of this, and I can confirm that my parents are the biggest consumers of my output in terms of music. Anyway, I'm being a little tongue in cheek, but at least would be if they were able to see it, because yes, it's so bad. Download is 2.5 megabit per second. So the reason this is working, and maybe with the occasional stutter, is that I'm using a Starlink. And I really hate the fact I have given money to Elon Musk, but I couldn't find any other solution. It cuts out occasionally because there's a bell tower which is annoyingly in the way for one part of the sky, and so it's an ongoing thing of how we can make it perfect. But it seems to be working reasonably well. So there we go. There's an explanation for that. What have we got? Are you still active on Twitter? So here's what happened with Twitter. When Elon Musk bought Twitter, I quit Twitter, or at least I went and shut down my account. Well, you've got 12 months to reinstate it. He recently did that poll, didn't he? And said, I'm quite sure he didn't expect that result. Or maybe he did. I mean, who knows? But anyway, he did the poll. Should I step down? Maybe he already knew, he's got an algorithm that can tell him. Algorithm on the wall. Who is the most popular of all? And when that result came out, that was interesting, So he says he was going to step down, but the first thing that he said was, all the bots. Oh, from now on, policy decisions will be only for people who pay, and that kind of stuff. And I just couldn't resist it. I wanted to quote some Latin to Elon Musk. So currently my Twitter is active again, but I only did it so I could tweet to Musk some Latin, because he liked to do that Latin which said, the people, the voice of the people, the voice of God. And so I said something like, when the voice of the people disagrees with the voice of God, God says what the voice of the people is. Which is what he was doing, right? But it does seem like there is going to be a new stalking horse. Maybe not, but I imagine it is, bringing in someone, and she is going to be the new CEO of Twitter, and we'll see what that means. It's just that I consider Elon Musk to be such a control freak. Come on, don't tell me anyone would disagree with me on that. It just seems inconceivable that he would allow someone to, do what they feel is right. So it's a complete mess. So that's where it is. So currently, I'm now leaving it, not really using it, but leaving it open, just because there's a possibility that things might improve. We will see. Well, I'm on live chat. I wish. I just need to. No, I can't make it appear now. Come on, live chat, to see if there's any messages here. Oh, there we go. New question. Thanks for all the questions. Because if the questions run out, then it gets a bit awkward, doesn't it? Do you own any retro systems? Yes. So one of my I have many projects, unfortunately. Well, no, I don't. It's not unfortunate. Yes, I do, but it's not unfortunate. It's just a way of using up time. Um, but I have a collection of retro computers because I have in mind there's a long-standing desire on you know to get a version to own every computer I've ever programmed and to have them actually running. Um, so I've got an Acorn System 1 is as far as I've got. Well, no, that's unfair. If I start from the beginning and until there's a break, actually I get as far as, oh, I get as far as the BBC Micro. No, there is one. Well, okay. There's the Acorn System 1, and then there's the Hewlett Packard 9825, which is kind of interesting. The Hewlett Packard 9825 was in my father's lab where he worked, and he allowed me to go there and program the thing. So I actually have two Hewlett Packard 9825s, but I have not dared plug them in. So um, part of the reason reason for that, if you want to know about why, you can go to Curious Mark on YouTube. There's Mark MARC. I can highly recommend the channel. And he loves the Hewlett Packard 9825. And he had one of his beloved 9825s, which blew up. And what happened is that the voltage regulator on the 5-volt rail died, and then like 15 volts went through all of the TTL circuitry through through the computer and blew up a whole bunch of chips. So he's got like 13-part series of repairing this poor thing. So he has provided a circuit design for a board that they actually added to the 9825s later. It could actually be that mine has one, I don't know. And it's a crowbar circuit so that if the voltage goes above 5 volts, it just clamps the thing down and it'll blow a fuse rather than blow up the circuitry. So I will not try them out until I have built this and put it in. But we moved into a new place a year ago, and I have a space where I want to do this work and potentially, you know, stream or YouTube it. Um, so that would be the 9825 after the Acorn System 1. And then there's Acorn Atom, which I've got. And then BBC Micro, I've got a couple of them. And then Atari ST, I would need to get, which I actually don't have anymore. Amiga, I've got one. And yeah, then it starts becoming a little more pedestrian. And I did connect my Acorn System 1 to a home built graphic card from a project, I think it was in Practical Electronics from 1978. And I built this team at the time. I built this and connected it to my Acorn System 1 so that I would have a TV display. And I had borrowed a keyboard, mechanical keyboard from a friend. And so I had built my own homebrew system when I was 13. But eventually I gave up with that and got an Acorn System 1. Well, I had located the project from the archives of electronics magazines, and I'm in the process. I haven't touched it for a while. I'm in the process of recreating the PCB so that I can get it manufactured, and I've sourced the parts. So I have that as a project as well that I want to do, is rebuild this VDU from 1978. And I do have in mind to go back and actually program these things. I do a bit of streaming with the Acorn System 1 when I was trying to develop an endless runner. So, yes. Um, I need to get I do need to get an Atari 400 and Atari 800 as well eventually, but it never ends. So let me see if I can bring up that live chat. Retro System, what's up with the reboot? Continuation of KOR. Well, the publisher would like to do some kind of update, but here's the tragedy. The tragedy is the huge mistake I made to use Unity. I'll go on record and right now and say that using Unity to do Kickoff Revival was a horrible, horrible mistake. Because not only did it drive me nuts, but we're now in a situation where the only platform that really has any amount of interest is the PlayStation. Not that I've got any royalties yet. Don't you think for a minute? All those people saying, oh, he's going to. No, I haven't seen a penny of royalties yet. Probably never will. But it would make sense to keep it going on the PlayStation 4, especially because it also still works on PlayStation 5. Here's the snag. In order to do that, I would need to get it through Sony's approval processes, their technical requirements, which requires using the most recent versions of their SDKs, which will mean using the most recent versions of Unity, which means that a whole bunch of stuff is going to have been deprecated in the previous 5 years. So basically what I have to do is port the entire game to the latest version of Unity in order to be able to update it on PlayStation. I need to investigate if there's some way around this, but that actually makes it quite prohibitive. And if I had just, written it all in C++, I wouldn't have had that problem. So we're kind of a little bit stuck, but the publisher is talking to Sony to see also if there are any new community features that we can use. Because there's no business case for it. There's zero business case. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever from a business point of view for me to try and update Kickoff Revival. None. If it was going to be done, it would need to be done out of love. And it's taken me this long to even consider it because the love got sucked out of the whole damn thing right at the start. So there we go. But we're looking at it. I'm thinking about it, and we'll see. We'll see what will happen. Ricardo, given the trendiness of retro games, are you not thinking to do a quick player manager version using Unreal or Unity? Oh, wow. Well, I really want to try and go there again. You can imagine it, couldn't you? Put yourself in my shoes. All right, there's no guarantee that there's any money involved, right? Which is important for me as I think about my retirement. I mean, I'm getting on. It's not a joke. In 12 years, I'll be 80, 70. In 12 years, I'll be 70, not 80. But even so, you know. So if I'm if I'm going if I'm going to do that, I'm going to do it out of love. I need to see some love, otherwise I'm just not know why. And yeah, this is the problem. So in order to actually do it, there needs to be a reason, and you know, if there's an angle where it makes sense, I mean, I might consider it if it was like a for a new low latency console, maybe if there was such a thing. You know, that would be potentially interesting. If someone comes out with something that is, you know, some angle. There needs to be some angle there. There is also the possibility of making a new version of the game for the Amiga, you know, enthusiasts and all that. But I'm a little afraid of. I can already tell you what would happen if I was to announce a update to Kickoff 2 on Amiga, right? Within 2 weeks, we'd get John Hare popping up saying it's going to be an update to Sensible Soccer, and I have to go through that whole circus again. So I don't know. You tell me. It's not that it's a bad idea, but I'm curious to know what do you think about the latest upgrades to C++ and the C standard? I think I'm live again. It probably cut out because of the satellite went behind the clock tower, the bell tower. So what was I saying? The C++ and C standards. Not much has happened in C for quite a while. Um, I don't think. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Um, I actually like C. I go back to very early days of C, so I've still got bits in my head of how it used to be when I was doing um, the C engine in OpenGL. Remember, I was streaming that like a couple of years ago. Um, the I liked it. I liked C the way that was very much, and you know, providing you deal with certain things well, think about your architecture well, really shouldn't stand in your way. Just in C, and that's what I wanted to prove as well. I was trying to shake off the vestiges of erroneous object orientated thinking. As you may know, I'm not really a fan of object orientated programming. With C++, it's that's complicated and all the new things that are in there. But for me, the important stuff is most important stuff was lambdas in C++14. Now we allegedly in C++20 we're going to get actual coroutine support. But lambdas are rather overdue. They've been implemented rather well in the fact that you can specify what you capture. I love that. And it means that if you use macros, you can create the most elegant form of coroutines that is possible in C++ by using Lambda than was possible without it. You could still do coroutines with macros, using macros in, you know, previous versions of C++, but it was very messy. But now, you know, the proccers, I would call them, but it's basically, you know, a coroutine, except they're not really what Unity calls coroutines. Really, continuation might be. Anyway, that when you create by using the lambda capture, basically you're able to hold the state and restore the state. This is the point about the lambdas with capture, is that this allows you to capture the state and therefore emulate, if you will, the stack full coroutines. And I tested this out in Unreal. There's a demo on my YouTube channel somewhere, just to prove that it would work. And it does work. As far as I know, nobody's using this technique. But this is good news in the sense that if I decided to port, um, if I decided to port Kickoff Revival to C++, I have a route for doing so. you know, because there's a strong argument to, if I had about, I'm running out of sort of steam, like life, life force is running out, aforementioned age thing, it's like, what am I going to spend the remaining time I have on? Am I going to rewrite Kickoff Revival in C++? Well, maybe. It'd be nice if I had some funds because then I could actually have people working for me doing that. But that's that La La Land dream thing of being able to actually, earn a living as a game developer, an independent game developer, as opposed to earning a living as a employed game developer at a AAA studio, as I am at the moment. Not that I've got any problem with that, but it's just a different thing, you know. Um, so I think realistically, I've kind of stripped it off the question. I'll come back to it. So anyway, look, yeah. So C++, it gets better. It feels like, I don't know when it was introduced, but it feels like now the initializer thing is much, much happier with that. You can do initializations, um, in line without having to go through the whole rigmarole of, initializing through constructors. These things are pretty handy, um, and it makes it feel more like C now. Now, I may be wrong, but it felt like at one point the two had drifted apart somewhat. So some things that were very handy to do in C, you couldn't do in C++, but it feels like the good things that you can do in C, you can now also do in C++. But yeah, I don't know. That's my general feeling. I think in future, any project that I do, though, I will do in C++. I will never do the C# Unity thing again, I can tell you. Ricardo, you can help. That's great. Do warn you, people say that. So it's like, that'd be great. So if you really think you can help me, then let's talk and we'll see. I've been let down in the past. So I'm always approach such things a little bit carefully. But you can you can shoot me an email because it's not hard because you know that my thing DNDN1011, you know that, right? DNDN1011 at gmail.com. Just send me an email and we'll see. Stefano. Okay, yeah, drop me yeah, do it by email. I recommend by email because I've got a bit fed up with social media, to be honest. He says while streaming on YouTube. But anyway, uh, interesting point of view to learn from. Imagine I use C++ since 20 years and I never use Lambda or templates. Well, there's a thing. The Lambda you couldn't use because it wasn't there. And just the idea of, you know, being able to have an inline function, it's just really nice because you can use it in other ways, not just that one. So, you know, um, and if you're using Unreal, they have a T function type which handles nicely by some, I haven't looked into how that's constructed, but allowing you to actually call methods of or functions of instances and it just works without you having to worry about, combining the pointer with this thing and you do the sort of star arrow thing, whatever. It's just works. In fact, I've been using Unreal for 2 years now. I'm very impressed with it. I wish I had got into using Unreal sooner. Um, they've done a really good job with the architecture overall. I mean, it's not without its problems, but overall, it's actually really good. Um, so the point there, anyway, is that if you have a function that takes a pointer to a function, right, you don't have to create a separate function and then you point to that. You can do it in line. So even without the capture bit, which obviously wouldn't be able to do at all with the first version, it's so much easier that you don't, because you get this problem, don't you? It's like, okay, if I want to do that and have it call this function, and the function I'm in the CPP file, and it's like, but the function doesn't exist in the header file. So you do a sort with a sort function, right? So I need to create the sort function, but I need to define it in the header, which is one of the things I hate about C++, the way that this is done. It's like, so even though I'm doing something that's completely local and should not be seen by anybody outside, I have to modify the header file. And if I modify the header, then that can have a consequence of needing recompilation of a whole bunch of stuff. And it just, you know, make it local to the file as a static, and you call it, and then I don't need to touch the header. Well, if you're using the Lambda, you just put it there. It doesn't need to appear in the header at all. As far as using templates are concerned, it's there is actually an argument that it's better not to use them if you can avoid it. Actually, these days, problem there is that you want to use all the stuff that's ready made. I mean, you don't want to make your own map or your own vector class, your own. Do you really want to make all of those yourself? When you're doing in C, as I was, you have to make them all yourself. Do you really want to make them? You say, but is it really that bad? I don't know. Is it really that bad? I mean, if we all just made our own classes, then you can carry them around with you for the rest of your life. I don't know. These days, in practice, use the standard template library. There's really no reason not to. Unreal kind of wraps all of that and has its own, still using templates, but it has its own like T-array and stuff like that. If they were building it now, they probably would just go and use the STL stuff, I imagine. But it also depends what you're working on, doesn't it? You know. So I saw a nice video talking about Unity yesterday, and it was presenting a balanced case of this whole thing with, you know, the data dots, the data orientated technology stack, and all of this. I just made the point, yeah, for performance, those things are all great, but the majority of you people who use Unity, it doesn't matter. What the majority of people who use Unity want is something that works easily. So, you know, there's this tension, isn't there? There's a tension between trying to optimize the hell out of everything and then also having things which are easy to use. You kind of need both. And Unreal has both in that sense that you can do things with blueprints. You want to prototype with blueprints, but as soon as things become firm, you really want to put it all in C++, because you're going to have a nightmare trying to merge your code on diagrams and so on. But anyway, I digress, because I kind of digressed all over the place. I've got to check the chat, see where we're at. Good evening, Michael. Hesback, how are you doing? In a while. Exactly, balance between the two. Balance is very important, and more important than ever. fact, this is the thing, isn't it? And you look at what's going on in the world right now, everybody is an extremist. Doesn't it seem that way? We've had that happen in technology as well. So I'll give you an example. It's like test-driven development. You know. So of course, when people want to say how great, that was a long one. Have to wait for it. Wait for the satellite to go past the bell tower. Yeah. So test-driven development. So what you get is this thing where it's almost like, no, that's the rule. The rule is you always write the test first. That's an extremist position. And then what you get is a bunch of people arguing over stuff that really it doesn't make any sense in the end. It's like it's not true. Test-driven development is not the silver bullet that solves all problems. I can tell you why. The simplest thing is because of integration problems. Test-driven development won't really help you with integration errors and defects and so on. And if we're in game development, test-driven development, in a way we kind of have that, don't we? Because we give our games to the QA department and they are the ones who test the game, and they in a way become the driving force behind change and improvement in the game. That's fair enough. But it's not automated. So my point is this thing about extremes, and we see that in politics, and we see that in paradigms, object-oriented programming. It happened the same to that. You know, I argue because it was easy to teach, and then that becomes, and that's basically what I go on about in my um, podcast, The Moths of Programming. I'm trying to sort of tone down the extremism. Well, we need less extremism in this world. You know, I was interesting point recently was I've been fascinated by what the heck is Elon Musk doing. So then on YouTube there are these debunking channels. I don't know if you've seen people paint themselves as being very intellectually rigorous. Underfoot posted a video to debunk the Tesla and got it absolutely wrong. And I'm going, how could he made such a mistake? Then he's called out by another channel that correctly calls this out and then says something absolutely ridiculous. Something like, 6,000-mile tunnels. It's like, you can't make, from a boring company, you can't make a 6,000-mile tunnel. That's not possible. It's never going to happen. Sorry. Are you serious? So I realised something. It's like WWF. It's like everybody takes extreme positions so that they can lob stuff at each other and gather more people to their channel. If you are a debunker on a YouTube channel, you are smart if you deliberately make mistakes in what you represent so that other debunkers come and debunk you and you get a lot of traffic coming from it. And they're all as bad as each other. Sorry, I've gone off on one. That's why I was saying we need sincerity. I wish you all a sincere 2023. Amiga 500, how you doing? Had the flu all week. Yeah, me too. I'm over a week now with it, and it's annoying, especially over Christmas. What a time to get it. Come back, chat. Thank you. I'm trying to get the chat back. Why don't you like music? Who says I don't like music? Why don't you like music? Did I say I didn't like music? That's a bit of a random question. I do like music. We need a clarification there, Zag, because I've run out of questions now. KOR2. Well, get a club going of people who want KOR2. I, so it was Musk, not music. Is that? Oh gosh. Okay, because these are not very powerful glasses, and the text here. So it was Musk spelt with a C, and I thought she said music. Musk. Why? Why do I? Uh, well, what is there to like about Musk? Let me turn that one around, Sag. What is there to like about Musk? Seriously. I can think of only one thing. Hey, Bashar. First time catching your live chat. Kickoff 2 was the game I binged most on back in the Amiga days. Would play my cousin all afternoon. 1880. So it was balanced. That's there. If you're lucky if you had someone to play with. I was talking about that earlier. So you didn't lose all the time. That's good. That makes me happy. See, part of me feels guilty for having made a game that certain people would lose at all the time. KOR2 with Unreal Engine. It could potentially happen. Hey Kevin, how you doing? I did miss your post, I think. I'm just going to look for it because the problem is that I'm on Starlink and there's a bell tower in the way, so the connection goes. So I'm sorry. Yes, I don't have it. If you could ask the question again. So I'm just scrolling through the chat. So yeah, Musk. Yeah, Zag. I can really only continue with that because the problem is, I'll tell you, one thing I admire Musk for is that he was involved in a company that successfully landed those boosters. That is, the technology for those boosters and how they land. That is nothing short of amazing. It's a wonderful thing to see, and I'm sure it will be useful to humanity in the future. And that I can say is a contribution that was really worthwhile. That's the only thing I can think of. um, just for everything else, I find very difficult to handle. Trying to get the thing. We need to put. Well, I mean, it wasn't. There was the same name, but it wasn't. I wasn't involved in the player manager that was put out afterwards. And it's yes. I mean, I've wanted to, but there we go. Right, I'm trying to get the chat back. Sorry, but this is a terrible interface. So somebody, I didn't see their message. So if you send the message again, I can't see who was it. Kevin Wiltshire. So if you're still here, Kevin, please ask your question again. Oh. Right. Okay. I think we're. You just did. Hang on, I'm looking for Kevin's question. Just bear with me a minute. Oh, this user interface. Ah, okay. Click on live chat, and there's no. Then it may be that you put a link in there. I'm just trying to see if I can find out what happened with your message. You could try splitting the message into two. Well, obviously you're able to talk. So Kevin is trying to get his message. I don't know. Maybe there's some. Yes, we can see that, Kevin. What I suggest you do is post it in parts, and then we can get your message. We're all curious what your message is now. Ah, Black MIDI. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Is that Kevin? Black. Ah, you're talking about the band Black MIDI thing, or just the musical style? No. If I'm forced to give either a yes or no, I'm afraid seriously it has to be no, uh, Kevin. Album club, that's it. Music appreciation. That's weird. Why did the message not appear before? That's strange. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I lost my collection, but those were good days. And it's like that with a lot of things, isn't it? If you think about it. Who's that? Um, Yesterday I saw a video. I'm not well. I'm watching lots of YouTube videos, right? But so there was a video about some person talking about dubstep. Yeah, that's random, but and how the scene, it was very, it was kind of hypnotic, meditative originally, and people gathered, and there was a community, and it was, the golden era of this. And then what happened is, of course, just like with everything else, it becomes commercialized, but not just even by big companies, just by people. They take the idea and they start manufacturing a new version of it that is sort of effective at some goal, which in the case of this is filling music venues. And then the actual essence of the thing is lost. And we see this happen over and over again. And it's what I mean when I say that human beings are wonderfully, well, wonderful is the right word. Um, they have an amazing ability to destroy everything that is beautiful. But whereas one time I always thought it was corporations, actually come to realize it's just human nature. We can see that with debunking, like I mentioned before, the debunking videos. I mean, uh, the whole idea of that particular format, right, is that people say something and you do fact checking on it, and so on. But now it's become commoditized, and then it loses its meaning. So now when there's a debunk chat, and you say debunked, I just don't bother to watch them. I just assume that it's just some more nonsense. So I'm seeking out better channels on YouTube at the moment, and they do exist. Um, but and people I like to listen to because it's not just a format anymore. It's becoming like a game show, it's not that anymore. Yeah, give me somebody who's an expert in a field and can talk about that in an interesting way without 75 jump cuts every minute, you know, um, as opposed to a commentator on a topic that they know nothing about, but want to try and put forward a viewpoint as if they were an expert. And anyway, got to check the chat. I naively agreed to give it away to get a PC or something newer. Luckily, I found the MSX, which was the first ever Arabized computer game device ever. Effability. Did you debunk the latest kickoff on Steam? I'm not really discussing that because I want to leave the option open for legal action. Well, it tells you enough, doesn't it? I need to get a drink, so I'll be right back. But if you have any more questions, go ahead and ask them. A bit of silence is also good. You don't have to go yap, yap, yap all the time. He said yap, yap, yapping. Let me ask you, what do you think the most significant contribution to humanity has been in 2022? Be asked anything, you know. Ah. Someone has got something. Come on, it's a positive thing. Surely there must have been something positive out of 2022. How long can I keep this up without ranting about something? I could try and answer my own question. I think for me, the greatest thing that happened in 2022 was a seed that was planted, which seems like it's a really nasty, bad seed, but might actually end up really being good. And that is this whole AI thing. Not because I think that the AI is going to sort of, in the short term, be good at all. I mean, artists are going to face an existential crisis, and we are too. What is the point of doing anything if an AI can do it better than you? But where I think that there might be a positive edge to this is that this is really just a reflection of the same old, age old question of why bother getting up in the morning when there are 6 billion, 7 billion, 8 billion other people, and most of them are probably better than me at getting up in the morning. We've got this thing about competition. You see it with musicians, right? If somebody plays the saxophone, they play the saxophone, say jazz saxophone. They'll play the jazz saxophone with, John Coltrane staring at them. I mean, it's like, how do you play jazz saxophone without the presence of John Coltrane, who's considered the greatest jazz saxophonist? In fact, I remember once there was someone saying that I wouldn't play that tune. He already played it perfectly. It's kind of, no, wait. That's missing the point, isn't it? If you take that attitude, why bother doing anything? Why bother writing a book when there are people who can write the book better than you? Why bother playing a musical instrument? People play musical instrument. Why bother doing anything? Now, the point here is that the AI starts to sort of tug on that, doesn't it? It's saying, oh, what's the point in being an artist if the AI can do the art? As will happen, what's the point of being a musician if AI can make the music itself? So maybe what the little positive thing that will come out of this disaster is that people will be forced to value the right thing, which is not doing something for acclaim or doing something to be better than other people or doing something to, create wealth, money, power, but instead do it for the love of doing it. Because it's only by doing things for the love of doing them that you can actually be happy. And so I've got a feeling that this might actually turn out to be a good thing, even though it looks like a grim thing. Another side to that, by the way, if anybody is sending messages, it's stuck. Oh, sorry, there's loads of messages. It got stuck. I didn't see them. My apologies. I'll get to them in a minute. I thought so. Yeah. I'll just finish this point. So there is another side to this, which is that the fact that AI is able to fake everything. I mean, maybe I'm not really here. Maybe this is just AI. One day, this will be the case, that you will be here looking at someone talking, and you wouldn't be able to tell that it was an AI. And when that day happens, there will be, posts in LinkedIn and all these people going, oh gosh, look how brilliant this is. Oh, this is amazing. It's like, it's pointless. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a great way of being able to fake someone saying something. Fake events that happened. We will have completely fake personalities that don't exist in the real world. These things are all going to happen. And what's the consequence of this? The consequence is that people will not be able to trust what they see if they don't see it with their own eyes. And people will turn off. And that is what I predict will happen from the AI thing, is it will cause fake. And maybe this will drive people together again. So instead of me talking to, at the moment, 10 people who are watching this, potentially all over the world. I'll be talking to the people in my street. Wouldn't that be amazing? No disrespect. That would be amazing, because we've forgotten how to do that. AI will eat itself. Let me check the chat. Kevin, good night. Sorry, I missed you on the message. Oh God, not more idiots. What's that? On Steam. Oh, there are always people like that, and there are people like that everywhere. The goalie in Kickoff 2 had this random behaviour where he would be stunned for a couple of seconds. Was that a bug? Or was there a reason behind it? Well, it might be a feature, because I would try to emulate some kind of reaction time. So it's possible that if the goalkeeper had just made a save, the game would throw the goalkeeper into a pause state. So there's a recovery time after having done the save, which makes sense, right? Because that's the way human beings are. So it might be that, but to be sure, I'd need to see an example of the case that you're talking about. Cost of living crisis. Lockdown is now accepted as useless. Yes, I think the lockdown really probably didn't help anything at all. Biggest contribution to that question I asked. Sorry it took me so long to get to it, because I didn't see them come through because of this useless user interface. Seems that there are big leaps in physics. That is true. Space and medicine, but from my perspective, the AI chat. Excited to talk to a machine instead of talking to people. The resignation of Boris Johnson was definitely a positive side of things. Unfortunately, it's almost like in a desire to try and say, I told you so, was immediately replaced by something even worse. The COVID vaccine, my God. I think potentially AI for medical research, it's absolutely, there's but even there, it's like, it's all very well to have people living longer, right? That's all very well and good, but it's not the length of a life that really matters. It's the length of a meaningful life, isn't it? And we all got to find meaning somewhere. But then I suppose in the end, do we even need meaning? I don't know. 2 days ago, I joked. Someone, daily selfies were actually AI. I asked AI to write such a story, and it did. And it was with a plot twist. Absolutely. The thing is it's using what I like about these algorithms. I've experimented with creating images, right? Create an image from a prompt. What I find interesting about it is that you get to peer into the soul of humanity, because everything that is generated, it comes from content that was studied. And I think it can, about that was generated by human beings. And so I think when you look at that, you actually get a sense of the soul of humanity, and it can be quite dark. So when I quit Twitter, I wanted an image for for that. So I typed a phrase, I can't remember what the phrase was, about leaving Elon Musk's Twitter. And the image that came back, this whole crowd of people, and this guy in a suit, black suit, presumably Elon Musk, is the only person who's recognizable. Everybody else is vague. And there's this huge pillar. It was like this white tower with a pointy top. And and he's like almost like a conductor there. This was all generated by this algorithm. And you can look at that and go, yep, that's it. Yeah, I think that is a potential use for AI, incidentally, is as well, is that you can ask the AI a question and then psychoanalyze the result. And from that, you get to understand really what humanity is and where it's at. Let's see where we're at. Okay. Thanks, Stefano. Simulation theory. 2 days ago. Oh yeah, I got that one. I think that an AI can be relevant in a society that has flattened out. One thing an AI can never do is generate new ideas and enlighten in this sense. I actually agree with you, because although an AI could generate something that appears to be a new idea, the bit that's forgotten, for example, with art, is that art is a communication, often of the ineffable, of what cannot be said in words. You look at an abstract painting that makes you have a certain feeling, for example, and you can't put into words what it is, but you get the feeling. This is true with music, right? And so a really good piece of music will give you a feeling. It feels like a vibration or something. It's like a presence. I don't know how to describe it. Like a smell almost, except it's not a smell. And that is the essence. Cut out again. So the point I'm trying to make with that is that that communication of the ineffable, it would be like you want to write a poem about what it felt like to wake up one morning and see the sun rise. Okay, it's a cliche, but see the sun rise over the sea. And I'm actually picturing that in my mind, and there are certain feelings that I'm getting. I can hear the water, but there's also that smell, slight seaweedy smell, and a bit of a mist. And then the sun, just as it starts to come up, it's almost like it's pulling itself out of the ocean, and it creates a certain feeling. Well, the point is that the AI cannot have that feeling, and so therefore it cannot communicate to you. It can replicate such a thing that someone else had, but it cannot of itself have the feeling. And so it will never be capable of actually doing the important bit of art, which is that communication. If I give another example, the uh, phenomenon of Miles Davis as a trumpeter being able to play a single note, and that note just hits you. It's it's like the first note of blue and green on Kind of Blue. And it's just this muted trumpet, and the first note that comes out, because it's not just a single note, it's the way it comes out, it's the way it's drawn out. And it's like this sort of yearning, sort of almost tearing thing. It's amazing. It was a way. where does it come from? Yeah. So I actually argue that actually comes from Miles Davis, as in a person. Can an AI meaningfully do that? I don't think so. Uh, and so, in that sense, one thing can never do is generate new ideas and enlighten in this sense. And so, that's how I would agree with that statement, as in the sense of that connection with being a person. Hey, Michael, what particularly, because I've been talking about so many different things, and it was probably a message from like 20 minutes ago. But I'm glad, yeah, to get some thinking, new thoughts. I think that's always good. Sanan, hey, hi, how you doing? Oh, a little moderation, thanks there. I have no idea. I missed the message, so I didn't see what it was. Thanks, Zach. Look into it. Look into humanity through AI. Bashar, yeah, thank you for coming. Good night. 2 a.m. Yeah, good night, Bash. Um, yeah, so if you listen to Mark Knopfler, yeah. I mean, that song "Money for Nothing," you know the one. That has a very strong feeling. I mean, it was a hit. That's one of the characteristics of good hits is they have that. They if you take the Money for Nothing song, for example, or Brothers in Arms, that has a very strong feeling as well. But it's different. So Money for Nothing is different from Pink Floyd Wish You Were Here, is different from um, Lazy Sunday Afternoon. Do you know that song? I can't remember who it was by. That has a very, and it's very clever song, that, in the sense of it's a song that feels like a lazy Sunday afternoon. It just resonates a lazy Sunday afternoon. It's got that, it's more than the words, it's the whole thing as a whole. It resonates with it. Or you could take Kate Bush, Running Up That Hill. It's another big hit. Has a very strong identity, completely unlike all the others, or Wuthering Heights. Funnily enough, though, if you look at Wuthering Heights and Running Up That Hill, you can see how there isn't a complete disconnection between the two because they are both Kate Bush. If you wanted to understand who Kate Bush is, it's all encoded in her music because it came out from her. In the same way as if you want to understand who Miles Davis was, just listen to you actually get a large amount of what Miles Davis was and who he was as a person. And I don't mean this intellectually. It's like looking at a colour. You can't tell me what the colour blue looks like to you. Your colour blue might be my colour red. We have no way of being able to check that. But what you do know is that when you see it, it has a certain effect. So if we use that analogy of colours, all the musicians and composers and artists and so on, they're all like colours. And there are so many different shades of colours. Because you get a lot of information about the colour of Miles Davis from the first note on the trumpet, from the trumpet on Kind of Blue in Green, on Kind of Blue. It's all there. You think I'm talking nonsense? Maybe I am. But you can look at it another way. You know, holograms. So if you have a hologram on a photographic plate, you can take any tiny fragment of that photographic plate, and in it there will be the complete image. So with holography, on the photographic plate, you get the image that you're taking the capturing holographically, is basically every viewpoint is recorded somehow on the photographic plate from that position. That's how it can then, if you use the right laser light, you can create something that looks different depending on the direction that you're looking at. So that's very interesting, because it means that the tiniest fragment of your holographic image has the whole image. So it's a bit like that. That one note from Miles Davis is like a tiny piece of this, and from one direction, but when you go into it, it's actually the whole of Miles Davis is in that one note. All right. I might have to quit soon because I'm actually beginning to struggle with this talking. So let's see what we've got. Brothers in Arms, we're on there. It's been actually a pleasure. Good. That's fine. Well, I will say this, like, try, you know what? I just, because I'm talking about this topic, I've wanted to talk about this topic for a long time, right? There's this thing about the colours, or there's a word that's very good for this called qualia. You can look it up, Qualia. Quality, call it like the quality of existence. There are loads of them, and we don't pay attention to them. It's like you meet someone for the first time that you've never met before, but they project somehow a feeling, or an event occurs, some situation arises, sometimes when something unexpected happens. And have you ever not had that thing when you're there and you can sense this thing that you can't put into words, but it's like a feeling, and they can stay with you. So I can remember one, for example, that I felt the time that I heard the 59th Street Bridge song by Simon and Garfunkel when I was 7 or something, 8. And it was such a strong feeling that I went and bought the album. Actually, I was a bit older than that, I think. I bought the Simon and Garfunkel Greatest Hits just because of the way that song hit me. It wasn't anything I'd ever felt before. I didn't recognize it. But it felt like I ought to have recognized it. It certainly felt meaningful. So what I'll just say is, one of them is your neighbours, in a good way. What I'll say is, I'll be very interested to know if any of that makes actual sense to anybody, and if during the course of your day you get that happening. And what I would love is if people would start making a note of it, and then who knows, we might be able to develop a language, describe colours just by comparison. Wouldn't it be fantastic if we were able to make the ineffable a little bit effed? I would love that, but I don't know if that's possible. Let me know what you think anyway. Neuralink. Oh, no. Oh, let's not go there. The poor, think of the animals. Anyway, it's been a pleasure, and I have to stop now because I can't talk anymore. It's starting to hurt. So take care, everybody, and See you soon. All right, take care. Good night. How do you turn this off? It's like, where's this user interface? I have to do one. Oh, there we go. Yes, I want to stop streaming.